Hello everyone, Silent here, and welcome back to another episode of Bug Rock of the Week. It has been a very busy week at Mojang. They've been releasing some amazing betas and snapshots as well. We have a lot more seed parity, more world generation changes, more mob spawning changes, the reintroduction of the rare Deepslate ores, but one of the most important changes that you should be aware of is the fact that they have officially moved into 1.18 betas. All of the Caves and Cliffs features officially are in 1.18.020 instead of the previous 1.17 betas. This means that we're probably going to get like one more 1.17 update, just a real small bug fix one, I would imagine. And then the actual Caves and Cliffs update is going to be the next thing that we get, most likely, which is very exciting. 1.18 is really getting close. Before we get into the main beta of today's video, there's a couple of other bits of news and another Bedrock Edition release that I would like to talk to you about. So first of all, the most recent Bedrock Edition update has indeed released. 1.17.34 is here. This is an update that doesn't really matter. You don't even need to download it if you don't want to. It just fixes one thing with the marketplace more or less. We also have quite a few tweets from Henrik regarding a bunch of little tweaks and changes to 1.18. So first of all, if you saw the previous episode, you might know that drowns were able to spawn in the dripstone caves in the water, but zombies had been completely removed from the spawning tables. So they've actually reverted that change because there's simply not enough time to test and balance that, and as of right now, drowns and zombies can both spawn in the dripstone caves. The same thing applies to the elytra changes as well. If you're aware of those, they made it so that the elytra only takes durability damage when boosting with rockets. That's something that's probably going to be revisited in a future update and won't be included in 1.18. They're also making a lot more progress on seed parity. As you can see, we have Bedrock Edition here on the left, I believe, if I'm telling by the water correctly, and Java Edition on the right. As you can see, everything is like really close, even the floating blocks. However, feature placement such as flowers and trees and bamboo and vines and stuff, that is still currently different between Bedrock and Java Edition, and that is something that will be revisited in a future update as well, because there's simply not time to fix it. Now, you'll notice that Henrik said they don't have enough time to fix it in several of these tweets, which again is just telling us that the Caves and Cliffs update is getting very close. There's also a new ore distribution system for the most recent snapshot. So as you can see, we have the reintroduction of Deepslate Emerald ore. Deepslate Emerald is going to generate a lot at the very tops of mountains, and then below mountains, you're going to see that generate down below Y level 0. So that means that we will be able to find Deepslate Emerald ore. It's just going to be very rare. However, what's going to be even rarer than Deepslate Emerald is actually Deepslate coal. As you can see, the very tip of this little scale right here is touching like Y0. So in theory, it should be possible for us to get the Deepslate coal ore. So this means that we'll have access to every single type of Deepslate ore in vanilla survival. This new ore generation system brings in 3 major changes. It adds more unexposed diamonds, so diamonds that are completely surrounded by blocks. Iron will now generate above Y level 80, with more iron as you go up higher. So if you find a giant mountain or something, you're going to be finding a lot of iron up there, a lot of emeralds, and a lot of coal as well. So if we look at this part of the scale over here, you'll see that gold now generates below Y level 48, but with reduced air exposure as well. So overall, good stuff all around. So moving on to beta 1.18.020, this takes all of the Caves and Cliffs features out of experimental and puts them into the regular game. It also changes a ton of things with world generation. It upgrades raid farms and hero of the village. It introduces new user interface changes and all kinds of other things like that. This is actually a pretty big beta, and I'm wondering how Mojang is getting so much done every beta every week. It's actually kind of impressive. A side effect of everything being taken out of experimental mode is the fact that the goat horn is now in the creative inventory, and you can actually access this thing and use it as well. It's super loud, and as far as I can tell, its only use is being annoying and loud, so who knows if this will actually be included in 1.18 or not, but I figured it was worth pointing out since we're all kind of curious about what this thing does and why it exists. So first up, we have a bug fix that allows the large 2x2 trees to grow below 0, such as the dark oak, the jungle, and the 2x2 spruce tree as well. The ore distribution graph that I just showed you for Java Edition has also been introduced to Bedrock. If you've been playing in these betas and snapshots, you might have noticed a lot of floating water in these underground caves, and water that just like shouldn't really belong, like all this right here. Yeah, this will no longer generate, so we don't have to worry about all of this cursedness happening. They've fixed the world generation so that the Tuff blobs can now generate below Y0. As you can see, we have quite a bit of Tuff just kind of generating all over the place. This is going to make the caves a lot more interesting because it's no longer going to be like 100% deep slate and like 55% ores. The Deepslate blobs and patches that can generate above Y0 are being removed. Previously, you could find these Deepslate patches up to around Y15 or so. This was added for 1.17 to make it so that you could actually get these blocks and get the Deepslate ores as well. But now that Deepslate generates at and below completely Y0, yeah, these patches aren't really needed anymore. So now you're only going to find deep slate at and below Y0. You might find a little bit creeping up above Y0, but that's kind of a bit of an outlier. Now this change actually has a pretty big impact for mining. So now if you are pretty early game and you don't have that great of a pickaxe, mining at Y0 or maybe at Y1 is pretty much the best way to go because you're not going to have to mine the super slow deep slate. All you have is the regular stones and stuff like that. There's also a pretty significant amount of ores around Y0 as well. So early game, that's going to be a pretty great mining level. But also, like, is strip mining even a thing that you need to do anymore? Literally go to any cave ever, look in one direction, and you'll probably see like 50 different ores. So maybe it's kind of a moot point. So not only is Mojang changing where the Tuff and Deep Slate blobs happen, they are also changing the granite, andesite, diorite, gravel, and dirt blobs that you can find throughout the world. They are changing these and moving these around to be in parity with Java Edition. So not only do they want the surface of the world, the feature placement, the biomes, and all of that stuff to be in parity between Java and Bedrock, they also want the underside of the world and even down to the block placement and ore placement to be in parity. This is what I'm talking about. Mojang is being super thorough when it comes to parity on world generation. The peaks of small mountains are now properly jagged. Previously, smaller mountain ranges were just all smooth and basically little round blobs on the surface. However, as you can see, this small mountain actually has jagged points and it looks like a real mountain. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually like a small mountain, but it's the best demonstration that you're getting because I loaded up a random seed and it's literally nothing but mountain ranges for like 2,000 blocks in every direction. So, yeah. Invisible fire has been removed, so previously if you had fire spreads turned off, you could light some blocks on fire, then remove those blocks, and the fire would still be there. But as you can see, if we walk through this area, we will not be caught on fire, there's no fire sounds, and there's no more invisible trolley fire to be had, which is actually a good thing. Mojang has also made some changes to render distance and performance. There is a lot more Minecraft to load in 1.18, so when you first load up the game, you might see a prompt to change your render distance. Either lower it or even raise up your render distance in order to get better performance. So when I first loaded up the game, I was prompted to lower my render distance in order to get a better frame rate. You can also see this in your video settings and the render distance slider. So now when you're at the maximum render distance, whatever that may be for you, you can see there's this little note here. Higher render distances can cause low frame rates, crashes, etc. And if you lower this down a couple of notches, eventually you'll find the recommended setting, which is actually a pretty nice little thing to see. However, I would actually like to see an overhaul to this render distance slider. Currently, it's in little integrals, like I can only have 32 or 40. I can't have like a 35 chunk render distance. I would love to be able to adjust this by 1, anywhere from like 2 to 96 or whatever the maximum may be. Let us explode our devices and you can tell us that you warned us, because there's a warning here. You know, even at 64 chunk render distance, once all of your chunks are loaded in, you actually have pretty good frame rates. I'm getting like 90 frames per second at some times, but while it's loading up all those chunks, you're gonna have like 20 frames per second. So if you're willing to suffer for a little bit, it's actually not that bad once all the chunks are rendered in. There's been a couple of bug fixes with the enchantment glint. Enchanted bows, etc. will no longer appear invisible in the Nether. I know this has been bothering a lot of you guys, and the enchantment glint for the pumpkin is now only centered on the pumpkin. It used to fill up the entire square. However, as you can see, when we're holding it in the inventory or holding it in our hand, it does not appear enchanted, so there's still some issues to be fixed there. As you can see, does not look enchanted. There's been a couple of bug fixes to the berry bush. Mobs will no longer attempt to pathfind through these things, but that only applies if they actually have any form of berry on them. As you can see, the little one doesn't deal any damage, therefore the mob is fine to pathfind through it. Berry bushes also once again deal damage to mobs as well. As you can see, previously they didn't deal any damage at all. You know, this is actually pretty convenient. You can just put a little wall of berry bushes all the way around your base, and no mobs will ever walk into it, which is pretty convenient, not gonna lie. It also means that this golem is kind of contemplating his life, and he doesn't quite know what to do. He's like stuck mid-walk. It's like, I will get you one day. And mobs also no longer pathfind over campfires either, which is a good thing. As you can see, this villager and this zombie cannot pathfind over these whatsoever. Mobs can now pathfind over trapdoors as well. Previously, if you put a mob completely surrounded by trapdoors like this, they simply would not pathfind out of there ever, and it was actually a pretty convenient way of making like a little bit of a zoo. But now, as you can see, mobs can just jump right over these with no issues. Well, maybe not no issues, but it is a zombie after all. They're dumb. Progress update, the villager is also dumb as well. And now we have some very interesting changes to raids and Hero of the Village. This is great stuff. So if you fail a raid and the raid expires or all the beds get broken or all the villagers die, for example, the raiders will actually now despawn if you move far enough away. This is a very good thing because sometimes you could just get stuck in an infinite loop of dying in a raid, but now if the raid is over and you go ahead and you travel far enough away, all of these guys will just despawn, which is fantastic because raid death loops are kind of the worst. Also, this guy, like, he's not very smart, is he? Are you depressed because you can't kill this villager? I'm sorry. There. Also, the raid boss bar is now red instead of purple, as you can see at the top of the screen. This is to match Java Parity. If you ever find yourself a pillager patrol in the world, these guys will no longer spawn with the Vindicators. This is actually a very good change because these guys would not naturally despawn from a pillager raid. So you would just kind of have a Vindicator staying around in your world forever until you killed it, and sometimes these guys would have the bad omen effect applied to them and the banner, so you really couldn't kill them unless you wanted to start a raid. So that is a lovely bug fix. These guys will no longer randomly spawn in your world. You'll only ever find them in raids and in mansions. There's also been a fantastic change to the Hero of the Village effect that I've been wanting for a very long time. So anyone who participates in a raid and help kills a raider will get the Hero of the Village effect for 40 minutes. I just completed an easy mode raid, so you might actually get Hero of the Village for longer if you're on higher difficulties. Anyway, this effect will stay applied to you for the full 40 minutes, and we can actually go visit other villages in the world, and the villagers in those villages will give us the discount. So as you can see, I'm in the secondary village now. If I click on this guy, he's going to have the discounts, and this is a huge buff to raid farms because it means that you can build a raid farm anywhere that you want in the world, and then once you've defeated a raid, you can simply go back to your villager trading hall and you'll have all of the discounted prices applied to every single villager that you interact with. This is absolutely game changer, and we have needed this on Bedrock Edition for a very long time. So this should also stack with the zombie curing discounts as well. So if you have that as part of your villager trading hall and you go there with the Hero of the Village, then you should get even steeper discounts, which is a lovely thing. I guess I'm kind of sort of covering snapshots now. So here's the snapshot 21W40A, and this one does actually have some pretty interesting changes in it, specifically to world generation, copper ore, and the stonecutter as well. So as you can see, copper ore now drops 2 to 5 copper instead of 2 to 3, which is actually quite the significant boost. And furthermore, the most important thing is in a stonecutter, a single regular block of copper can be converted into 4 cut copper. So essentially, you're going to be getting like 6 times more copper if you mine it with Fortune 3 and use it in a stonecutter now, which is fantastic. They've also basically doubled the size of most biomes, and that of course means that basically all biomes have been shifted around and removed and moved completely. Here's a screenshot from Henrik comparing the change before and after on the same seed, and as you can see, biomes are quite a bit different now. They've also increased the amount of dungeons, especially below height 0, which is a very fascinating change. That is quite good. This means that we could see like more double, triple, quadruple spawners, and it also means that below 0 is going to be a lot more dangerous, which I am looking forward to. Gravel now generates below Y0, villages are a bit more spread out. They completely changed how axolotls spawn. They now only spawn above clay blocks in lush caves, so axolotls are going to be a lot more rare. Glow squids only spawn in water blocks under Y30, so they're going to be quite a bit more rare as well. Cod, salmon, pufferfish, tropical fish, squid, and dolphins now only spawn from 50 to 64, so you're pretty much only going to find them at the surface levels of the oceans, and tropical fish now spawn in lush caves too. So of course, if you want more details on any and all the snapshots, Exuma's got you covered over on his channel. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of that snapshot because it has some very interesting changes that we should be implemented into Bedrock Edition here shortly. So keep your eyes peeled for all kinds of lovely things in the future Bedrock betas, and of course, whenever those betas are released, I will have you covered here on this channel with another episode of Bug Rock of the Week. But otherwise, I hope that you have greatly enjoyed today's video. If you have, then consider subscribing, that way you don't miss future update videos and tutorials and let's plays and all kinds of lovely things like that you might enjoy, and I will see you guys down in the comment section and in the next one. Thank you so very much for watching, and then there was silence.